And so that's really why the outsourcing model can be so effective. If you can have the same quality and you have 10 people in the US, but all of a sudden you can offshore them, you have 20. Now you
Yeah.
just double the amount of output that you're able to drive through the top of the funnel.
When you first started using this model, when you first started thinking about, I'm going to innovate my operating model, I'm going to leverage outsourcing, I'm going to outsource portions of my finance function,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do so in an offshore model. What challenges did you face? Did you face challenge
Yeah.
in getting
Yeah.
buy-in from your peers or maybe even from your own leadership team?
Well, everyone has a horror story, right? And a lot of the
Yeah.
horror stories are because they've gone to different countries or different jurisdictions, then they haven't gotten the same level of quality that you can actually get from the countries that 2X is set up in. You have heavy Western educated people, high English proficiency. You have a dedication to actually dedicating and driving the same level of consistency and operationality through the function that you would have with US employees. So if you can get that, the same exact quality, but move it offshore at half, if not even significantly greater savings than just 50%, you're crazy not to. But the problem is it's a lot of convincing internally because everyone has seen these things go awry where they try to set it up themselves or they just plugged in somewhere and it's somebody's not dedicated. You're sharing resources. It just can be a little bit of a strain on the organization and it pushes people away from it. I think when you package it internally, part of it is that this isn't really a vendor. This is an extension of
Right.
your team, which I think is critically important to have that viewpoint. Because if you go upstream and work with some of the larger companies, they may have an offshore center. And those people are part of the team. And if you're a company that's growing and you don't position it that way, you're basically saying, well, the company, this is just another vendor. And so when there's
Right.
another vendor, budget comes up, it's a big line in the P&L, it's a big line in the budget. Why are we spending so much with this outsourced company? They don't realize it's part of the team. If it's part of the team, it's flowing through essentially the org chart and you're looking at it and you're like, well, those people are part of the team. That's so-and-so that you work with on a day in, day out basis. And they're like, oh, that's a real person. That's right. Oh, and I do the math on it. That's way cheaper than everybody else I have in this marketing function. And it creates this cycle where people move faster to want to adopt and push more processes overseas.
When you and I first connected, I realized that I actually didn't handle things the best way when I had attempted to get buy-in from my CFO and my peers about outsourcing part of the marketing function. I actually talked to the CFO that I was going to reduce my personnel spend, showed that personnel savings, showed this smaller org chart. But then separately, when I presented the complete budget, I ended up dealing with concerns or objections around having such a large line item in the non-personnel spend and not connecting the dots between the vendor and
Mhm.
the shift in the operating model. That was just eye-opening in a way. I hadn't connected the dots before. I thought that perhaps the CFO would appreciate that I achieved these personnel savings to
Yeah, I
let's
mean,
paint that picture for the
right.
marketer
Yeah,
because clearly I messed it up twice.
right, right.
And if anything, marketing haters, if you're listening, don't do what I did. It made my job so much harder to manage through that.
And so that first time
Right.
you have that discussion, that next year, hopefully the same CFO is there. Sometimes they're not. And the year after, same type of situation. So all of a sudden, they don't know the whole evolution. But if you continue to show that org chart and show that it's made up of people that are offshore, it has a different impact on the discussions.
Now, recognizing that outsourcing or offshoring models aren't only just about cost savings. In many cases, it could be about performance or scalability. And what should CMOs take away from that and apply to the way that they report on marketing's performance and
Right.
impact and
Yeah. And I go
effectiveness? Like,
back
how do
to,
you think about the ROI of outsourcing?
yeah, I go back to some of the metrics that I was talking about before in terms of just increasing the pipeline and increasing the throughput from marketing qualified leads. And
Yeah.
if you can take the same amount of people, let's just say the whole organization's 100, and you take 50 and you move them offshore, and you still have 100, but now you have them in a center that has access to all different kinds of tools and access to all different kinds of people. So you just took the same amount of people, dropped the cost significantly, and took up the marketing qualified leads. Your cost of leads dropped significantly. Those are the things that are really powerful. That's where I like to get excited from a CFO standpoint. When I plug in, I can start to work with my FP&A team to measure those metrics, because that's where
Yeah.
you see a real game changer in terms of being able to accelerate growth.
One of the lessons I learned when using this model, I was at Faro Technologies, and after about a year and a half of leveraging this model, what we noticed was simultaneously reduced costs, but we did see more flow into the pipeline, more revenue impact from the marketing spend. We also saw faster velocity, and it was the one first real example where you could see driving reduction in costs didn't mean that you had to sacrifice an increase in impact. And simultaneously, normally marketers find themselves with their backs against the wall and they have to make a decision. I've got a budget cut, I've got to reduce it. So now I've got to reset expectations for the impact that we can have. And I don't know of any other model or investment decision a marketer can make that will simultaneously deliver both of those performance impacts.